Hey, welcome back. We are in part 5 of our video series where I am teaching you how to build a WordPress website from scratch using Kadence. In this video, we're going to be going over how to set up and configure the Events Calendar plugin. As you can recall from our video number 1 in the series, we needed a way to engage the community, and so hosting these community events that are either at the shelter or around other parts of the town is going to be key in having a successful Happy Tales shelter. So that's what we're going to be setting up and configuring in this video. If you are getting a ton of value from this series, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe so you don't miss another video in this series. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the screen and get our events all set up. I don't know if you recall, but in the very first video of the series, we got our first draft online using the Kadence AI Starter Templates plugin. And during that process, we told it that we wanted it to install the Events Calendar plugin. So the installation process has already been handled and taken care of. Plus, there are already 3 events already set up, demo events, that we can either customize or at least preview how the events calendar is looking. So we already are off to a really great start. But if you did not get started with the AI Starter Templates plugin and you want to install an events functionality on your website, you can go to the WordPress repository, type in the Events Calendar plugin, and then click on Install and Activate to get the free version. Now there are 2 versions of this tool. There's a free version and a pro version. For this specific video, we're only going to be demoing the free stuff, but we will touch on a little bit later some additional cool things you could do if you really wanted to upgrade. So without further ado, let me show you what the events calendar page looks like all by itself. So all I'm doing is visiting the events page here. And as you can see, it looks like this. So we have this set to the list view, but you can also toggle over and see either the month view or the day view. And we can actually configure which of these is the default view a little bit later on in the settings. But I like the list view for now. It also has a search bar that's only going to search in the events tool. And then it will showcase what is coming up. So we have this upcoming option and it's going to list everything out for us. We also have this subscribe to calendar option at the very bottom. Then if you click into one of the demo events, you can see this is how it looks. We have the breadcrumb at the top with the title, the date, the price, a featured image, the description, a little add to calendar button, and then all of the details down below. I think this is a good start, but I do think we could modify this a little bit, maybe give it a sidebar so that we have some additional calls to action to meet future animals, things like that. So we can set up a sidebar in this view too. So let's pop over to our WordPress dashboard, hover over events in the left-hand navigation bar and choose settings. I'm not going to go over every single setting in here because there's quite a lot to go through, but I do want to point out a few things that we will want to modify. So if we scroll on down, you can see that there is the option for editing. Right now we have the option to activate the block editor for events, which is toggled off, and the option to show custom fields meta box is toggled on the classic editor. So let me come back over to our events page really quickly. Let's click into our event and let's go edit the event just to see how it functions right now. So by default, the Events Calendar plugin is using the classic editor with what looks like custom fields, essentially. Now, if we wanted to, we could toggle this on and turn that off instead and click on Save Changes. Then when we come back over here and we refresh this view, it's now utilizing the Gutenberg editor. I think I like to utilize the Gutenberg editor since I'm just so familiar with editing in the block editor now instead of the classic editor. So this is the way I'm going to choose to demo for the rest of the video, but it's up to you on if you want to use the classic editor or if you want to use Gutenberg. So that's one quick little setting I wanted to point out. Then we can scroll down. There's no other settings in here. Let's scroll back up and let's go over to the display settings. On this view, I want to let you know that you can choose on the calendar display heading to enable specific views. So as I previously showed you, we had the list, the month, and also the day view. But if you don't want a specific view to show up here, you can definitely toggle those on or off to really customize that experience. I'm fine leaving all of them on there. I don't really have a problem with that. So I'm going to keep all of mine checked off, but I just wanted to highlight if you want to customize that, this is the spot to do that. Also, if you want additional views, you can upgrade to the Events Calendar Pro plugin, and that will also allow you to have summary, photo, week, and also map views. Okay, scrolling on down, this is where you can choose the default view. So underneath the default view, we have our set to list. I personally think this is the best option because our shelter may or may not have an event every single month. And so if we're hit with that month calendar view right away, it's going to look like we have nothing going on. Whereas even if we have an event coming up in a few months from now, the next event that's already scheduled will show up at the top of that list. So it doesn't feel like we have no events going on. It actually feels like we've got some coming up, but they're a little bit a ways away. So I'm going to keep that set to list view, but if you have tons of events and you're setting this up for your own site, you may want to change that to either the day or even the month view. Okay, so then we can also choose the month view events per day. So those are set to 3 per day. That's going to show up in the actual calendar view. I'm fine leaving that as is. And we can also leave the number of events to show per page set to 12. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you would like to enable comments to show up on events, you can toggle this option. For us, I'm going to keep it turned off. I don't really want a ton of chatter necessarily on the site. So we're going to leave that alone. Then you can also disable the event search bar. So if you are running a event calendar where it's kind of a lean calendar, you don't really have a lot to search, you can toggle this off. Let's go ahead and check that box and hit save changes. I just want to show you what this does. So let's preview, and I'm going to go back to all events. Now that search bar went away from the top. So you can easily turn that on or off, and it's up to you on what you want to do. I'm going to keep that turned on for now, and we'll just keep scrolling on down. Now, if you want to play around with month, year, date, formats, all of that, you can set these here. I'm going to leave this on and not have any other settings, but you can definitely come in here and change this to your heart's content as well. Okay, so that's all that I really wanted to show on the display settings. Then if we go over to filters, this is not going to populate any settings for us because we don't have the filter bar add-on. But if you are running a lot of events where you need to create those filters, this is a really handy way to do that. As far as licensing goes, you can also add your premium licenses here. Integrations, this is another way where you can add all of your integration keys. And then if you did want to import any events from another tool, either a CSV or something along those lines, then you could also do that on this screen. So those are the settings that I wanted to show you. Let's go ahead and pop over to our events. These are the 3 demo events that came across. Let's just come in here and move all of these to trash. I'm going to hit apply, and let's set up with our new events. Now, I have asked our handy friend, ChatGPT, to help me come up with some imaginary events. So for the first one, it is going to be called Pause at the Mall. And this is going to be a pet adoption extravaganza. And this one is going to be set for October the 12th on a Saturday. And we are going to have it be from, let's say, oh, we can set that down here. Let's make this from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Scroll down, find 4 p.m. Here we go. And it's pretty much all we need to do in that spot. So I am going to grab my little description that ChatGPT gave me, and I'm going to paste it here. It says, join us for the heartwarming day of pet adoptions at Southgate Mall. Meet adorable cats and dogs from Happy Tales looking for their forever homes. Bring the whole family and get to know our furry friends while enjoying pet-friendly activities, photo opportunities, and giveaways. Whether you're looking to adopt or just want to support a great cause, this event is a perfect way to spend your Saturday. Let's find every pet a loving home. So I really love this. And then as far as the price goes, let's go ahead and click into here. We're going to do $0. Although that's kind of weird. $0, and then we're going to do free. Okay, that's kind of weird how it's like showing this ad price thing there. But that's fine. We got $0 and it's set to free. Let's see how that looks on the front end. So then we can add or find an organizer. So this is the person that's responsible for this type of thing. We are technically the organizer at the shelter, even though we're going to be hosting this at a different venue. So there's two types of information we can add to this event. We can add the organizer as well as the venue. So for the organizer, we're going to type in Happy Tales Shelter, and it's going to try and find that in the database already. It's not going to be able to find it, so we're going to choose this Create Happy Tales Shelter Guy, and then we will add our phone number. So I'm just going to do 555 since this is an imaginary site, and then we'll go Happy Tales Shelter. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in my little demo site here just so that it actually links properly. And then for email, we can just do email@test.com since this is just a test account for now. So that is all done with the actual organizer. So if someone has questions, they need to call the organizer. But then we also want to add a venue. So we're going to type in Southgate Mall and see if that will show up. It's probably not going to pull up with anything. So we're going to click on Create Southgate Mall. And I already have the Google search pulled up here, so we can grab all of the address details here. We'll pop that in. We'll go Missoula, Montana. And this is in the United States. Find Montana. And then it's also looking for a phone number. Let me copy that as well. Oh, I also need the zip code. Let's copy that. And for the website, I'm going to leave that off because if someone wants to contact anyone, it needs to be us and not the actual website. And that is all that we need to do there too. So it's nice. It pulls up with this little map and all the things. That's pretty much all the content we need to add to this listing. So let's go over to the right-hand sidebar and see what we have. So we can add an excerpt if we want. I can add this little piece of text on top. So I'm going to copy that and then come back over to our event. Sorry, let me go over to our actual event. Add an excerpt. We'll paste that in. We'll scroll on down and then there are two options. We have tags as well as event categories. So if you know that you're going to have different types of events, so maybe one is for pet adoption events and the other is for maybe donor events, for instance, you could have pet adoption and then donor as your different categories. So I think let's go ahead and click on add new because I do know that pet adoption events are going to be really popular. And so we could group those all together by this pet adoption category. So let's do that. Let's click on add new event category and that is going to show up. Now you could also add tags here as well, but I don't see a use case for that just yet. So I'm going to leave those off. And then as far as event options, we can hide this from event listings. We don't want that. We want this to show. We can make this sticky in the month view, which is a pretty cool feature. I'm not really banking on the month view happening so much, but if there was a key event, you could definitely check that off. And then we could also click on this feature event option as well. I am not going to worry about any of those for now. And then this event status is set to scheduled. Let's go ahead and keep this as scheduled, but that's a really cool tool that you can actually come in here and change an event status to canceled or even postponed in the event of inclement weather or some sort of other extenuating circumstance. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that and then we can go in and, oh, one other thing, we need to set our featured image. So let's come in here and find an image for this. I'm going to do this cute little image of the cat and dog snuggling. I'm going to set this as our featured image and then now I'm going to choose the publish option. So it's going to do its thing, it's going to save, and now we can click on this little view event option and see how it is turning out. This is what it looks like. It looks like when we set the price to 0, it automatically goes to free, so we don't have to use the word free as the description. So having two frees there side by side doesn't really help us, so we're going to go modify that. But overall, this is pretty good. If we want to include that image, I wonder why the featured image doesn't show up automatically on here. We can play around with our customizer settings and see if we can get it to show up. If for some reason we can't, then we can always manually add in the photo as we need to as well. So anyway, that's how simple it is to set up an event. And let's go take a look over at our actual events. I'm going to click on this all events option. Now you can see the Pause at the Mall Pet Adoption Extravaganza is here. And so when we just set that excerpt, it's only going to show the excerpt here instead of all of the content. So let me go back over to the event and remove the excerpt altogether and hit save. And then let's go refresh that and see what it does. So if you don't put an excerpt in here, this will pull from as much content as it can, and then it will truncate the rest. So you don't have to go through that process of adding the excerpt if you don't want to, but that's up to you. If you do want to curate the content of what is shown on this view before someone clicks into the actual description, then you do have that excerpt option handy for you so you can customize that. So I think the next thing that we need to do is add in a few other events. So I've got 2 more events I want to add. So I'm going to click in here and do add new. So I'm going to do that here, and I'm just going to fly through that really quickly so that you don't have to sit here and watch me do the exact same thing. Okay, so I have added all of our events now. So we have 3 events on the calendar. We have Pause at the Mall, we have Clear the Shelter Day, and we also have Puppy Yoga for a Cause. So I just added some brief descriptions for now just to show you what we need to do, but let's go into the actual design aspect now and customize a few things. So we're going to come up to this customize option, which is in the black admin toolbar that's at the top. And then we are going to scroll down until it says the events calendar. So we're going to choose that option. And now we have a few settings from the design perspective that we can configure. In global elements, we have font families. There are default options, but we can actually set this to inherit the theme font so that we don't have to worry about styling this and trying to get all of the settings just perfectly. You have to remember that the Events Calendar plugin is a third-party plugin that isn't necessarily directly tied into the Kadence ecosystem. So you have to remember that it's not going to have the exact same design controls and features as the Kadence settings do. So just keep that in mind. So I do love this inherit theme fonts option, and then you can choose the font size and play around with that. You can also do it by scale and bump things up this way too. So you can play around with that. You can also set the actual colors, but like I just mentioned, the global colors that are a part of Kadence isn't necessarily a part of this option, so you would have to actually manually enter in your hex code since that's not a capability. Then if you scroll on down, we have this adjust appearance. Now the calendar and event pages are set to be transparent, but you can set a custom color if you'd like to. I'm fine with mine being transparent. And then if you want to customize the accent color, you can do that here. Again, we don't have global settings. All we have are hex codes that we can do. So it looks like this is pulling in from our theme just fine. So I'm going to leave it as is, but if you want to customize that, that's where you do that. So let's click on publish and click on the back arrow. So let's scroll on down to where it says the single event layout. And I want to modify the actual design layout of this page since this is the one that we're on. And as you can see, we have the show event title. We do have that turned on, but it's set to end content. If you want, you can actually set that to be at the top. And then we can play around with the design settings as well. You can set the width. You can adjust the alignment as needed. I'm going to leave mine within the actual piece of content there, but we can go through and in the design actually increase the font size. So if I go to the EM here and I make this, I don't know, 3, it looks like this might be not previewing, but so you will have to publish, and then there is a quick little tool that I like to utilize without having to go out and go back in. If you ever want to refresh the viewing screen, you can go up to colors and fonts, go to typography, come down here to where it says enable font smoothing, and that should reflect the change automatically for you. And then you can go back over to the actual setting. It's kind of like a little hack if for some reason the preview screen isn't following suit. So let's go back here, and I think 3 is too much, so let's go like 2.4 maybe, and I'm gonna hit publish and just trust that that's gonna be okay in a minute. Then what we're gonna do next is come over to the general tab and scroll down and see if there's anything we wanna change. Then we're gonna scroll on down, and we can choose to enable the actual breadcrumb. And instead of it just having the all events, I kind of like having the full breadcrumb there too. And let's eliminate this backlink instead, because someone can click on events or even the category pet adoption if they want. So I really like the way that this is turning out. The other thing we can do is modify this event layout. So right now it is set to this narrow setting, but I think I want to include a sidebar. So I'm going to go ahead and enable the right sidebar, and then we can customize the content that's going to show up over here so that we can really feature the pets that are available for adoption and even ways to donate or get involved. So we'll customize that in a little bit. So I do want to make that change. And then on the event default sidebar, I'm actually going to choose default sidebar 2 because that's going to be the one that we wind up customizing that's going to be specific to these events. And then as far as the content style goes, we can have it boxed, or you can also choose it to be unboxed as well. I'm going to keep mine boxed for now just so that our header and also the rest of the page kind of has some separation to it. And then as far as vertical padding, you can also turn those on or off. If you disable it, it goes all the way up to the top. I think it's important to keep it on, and same at the bottom if you wanted to eliminate that. So those are all the changes that we're going to make to this single event layout. I didn't see a spot to add a featured image though, which is interesting. Let's go up here to the single event as well. Options selected here will override what was selected within the global elements. So you can click into here and choose a custom event title color if you want. I don't think that's super necessary, so we're going to leave that turned off. I think that's pretty much all we can do. It doesn't look like we can turn on the featured image. So let's click on the X to get out of these settings for a second, and let's go back over to one of our events. If you want to utilize that, I would just manually insert it wherever you want. So if I want to add before and do an image, you can go image advanced, and if you wanted to, we can go over to the block settings, and then you can click on this enable dynamic image and set this to be the featured image, and it will dynamically populate without you having to go into the actual media library and find it and select it. So let's go ahead and save on this. The only downside of doing it like this is that this is not a template, so you're going to have to do this on every single event that you do. Because I don't think that the volume of content is going to be that great, I think this is totally fine to do that. So let's go back over to our events now, and let's implement the same thing. I don't know if you noticed, but I just copied that image block. So now all I have to do on the other events is come in here and go add after and hit paste, and it should automatically work. Because we had it set to using that dynamic content, you don't have to do anything. You just paste it and it will automatically take over and take control. So I do love that, and that's just an extra way to save some time. Let's do this one more time for the pause at the mall event, and we're going to go add after. We're going to paste, it's going to update, we're going to hit save. So now if we were to go and preview this, you can actually see the event, the description, and also all of the details. I am liking that much, much better. So the next thing we need to do is customize our sidebar. So let's go over to our dashboard. Now the way that you edit sidebars in WordPress is through the widgets area. And so if we go over to widgets, it's going to pop up with this little welcome notice. Sidebar 1, we are not utilizing at this point, but if we wanted to utilize that, I would reserve that for our blogs area. And in sidebar 2, this is the one we said we want to utilize for our events. So I'm just going to hold the shift key and select everything and click these 3 dots and delete to remove everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on update here. Now, I know that we have set up a few different sidebar design options on our template that we used in our hooked elements previously. So if we go over to appearance and then click on elements really quickly, we can go into the single pet template and choose edit on this. Then for this adopt Marla today call to action, this is the design asset that we've already created. So I'm just going to click into this section, use these 3 dots and click on copy. And then we can get out of this template altogether and now go back into our widgets. So appearance and widgets. And in sidebar number 2, I'm going to click in here, I'm going to hit the paragraph, and I'm going to do Command V on my Mac, and that's going to paste it in. Now, this is using dynamic content, so we are not going to be able to utilize this. So instead, we want to turn this off. So we're going to disable the dynamic image, and we're going to actually manually add an image in here. And let's find a sweet little image for adopting a pet. let's go in here and just add any old image. Let's go add this sweet little cat image. Now, for some reason, it may not populate because of the dynamic content features we just turned on and off, but let's also delete all of this and say adopt a pet today. We can say something like browse through our pets that are available for adoption. You know what, actually? I think I'm going to pivot this strategy. Instead of doing adopt a pet today with just one image, let's turn this design into a get involved. Get involved. And I'm just going to put some temporary text in here for now. And I'm just going to put some temporary content in here now. And then on this get involved, let's actually do maybe a picture instead of the pet of this cute little guy, where the human and the animal are together. So this should also change to say apply to volunteer, or maybe it's like get started. I don't like get and get. I'm going to use the same word get involved, but that's probably not a best practice. That's all I can think of for this demo experience, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to click on update, and then let's go back over here and preview what this is going to look like for now. So we have this cute little image. It says get involved, and then we'll have our content, and then we'll have the final call to action there, which I think looks really good. The other thing we can do is let's add before. I'm going to do another section. Click on it. And then in here, we actually can use the post grid carousel in order to feature specific pets that are available for adoption. So let's do this. Let's come in here and just do the simple version. So it's going to look a little funny, but we're going to modify all of these options. So over on the right-hand side, it says select post types. Post is not what we want. So what we actually want is pets, and this is going to pull a list of the pets that are available for adoption. And now I would say let's just do 4 pets, and let's definitely exclude current. On the layout settings, let's keep this at a 2-column grid, because I think if we eliminate all of this content, I think it should work. So we will work on that. As far as image goes, let's make this square so that all of the animals are in a square format. And then on style, we can eliminate some of this padding too. So like the padding on the right can go away, left can go away, the bottom can have about 20, top can have about 8. And as far as content settings go, I don't think we need that. Let's go over to our advanced tab. Let's go to the excerpt, and let's click on show excerpt to hide that all together. And let's click on update. And then from here, we can go over and see how this actually looks. So it's not bad, but it's also not great. I would continue finessing that a little bit. So let's come in here and modify a few additional settings. General tab. Let's go back to the layout settings. Column gap is way too big. So let's do 8 pixels, row gap 8 pixels also. And let's come down. Image padding has none. Style, bottom has way too much. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that also to 0, and let's update that and see how this does. That is looking better, but let's see. It's looking better. The other thing we could do is come over to this option. So right now it's set to a grid, but we could also have this be a carousel. And so people can just scroll through. Let's update that and see how I like that option. I think I kind of like that. So let's go add before. And I'm going to just copy this other title that we had so it looks identical. And we're going to have featured pets available for adoption. Update, and then, well, maybe I should spell that right. Underneath here, let's go add after, and let's do a button as well. Theme, and we're going to say view pet finder. And this will go to our pets finder feature. On this, I don't love having the arrows and also the dots, so let's go and modify that. So we have slides to scroll is one at a time, yes. Arrows, we have black on light, I think that's what I want, and dots, I want to do none. And let's update that and see how this is looking now. I think we're going to need to give this section some additional stuff. So let's give this some padding, maybe small 24 pixel padding all the way around would be good. And then as far as the actual background color, let's go white on that and hit save. And let's refresh this. Okay, this font is way too big. So let's go in here and just make this a paragraph. But underneath the advanced typography settings, we can set this to be inherit from the heading font. And we can also make this, I'm just going to bold it myself and hit update. And I'm also going to click into here and eliminate any of the margin at the bottom and then give it some extra small margin. Let's update that and see how this is going now. Let's just eliminate available for adoption. Let's just do featured pets. And then instead of the names having the title as well, I think what I want to do is go to the Style tab. Actually, I think it's on the Advanced tab. Under the title settings, let's set this to be inheriting the body font. And let's drop this down to like 18 pixels. And so when you do inherit the body font, if you're wondering like, why do I only have regular in this view? That is because it's only pulling from the settings you have inside of the Kadence customizer settings. So it doesn't mean that you can't utilize other weights from that font. It just means you can't, it's only going to pull those two from the specific view. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But if not, leave a comment and I will address it. Okay, so font weight, we're going to leave it as is. Let's hit update and let's see if that refreshes that. I think now the featured pets needs to be bigger. So this little guy, let's set it to like medium. Refresh. There you go. And now when you scroll, you can see the different ones. And these should be linked. So if you click on Bark Twain, he goes over to the side. If you click on Salem, it goes over to Salem. So I think that works really well so far. We could also try to do 3 columns. So let's increase this to 6. Go to the layout and see if we can do 3. I don't know if it'll let us. Save. It might be too squished. Oh, that's kind of cute. I actually think I like 3 better. But now the font is going to be way too big. This is all that this design stuff is. Sometimes it's just playing around with different settings until you get it right. So let's drop this down to like 16 and hit update. And we might even have to drop that down to actually 14. But let's go see what 16 does. Cinnamon Chai and Ziggy Stardust are really big. The other thing I don't like, so I typically like to use EM, that's just my own personal preference. But let's do 1.1 on this, just to shrink the space between these words. I think is pretty cute. The only other thing I can think of is on the Style tab, let's go to the text alignment and center it since the rest of it is centered. And let's refresh. So now we have all of these options. Now, if we don't like this slider as well, we can always change this back to a grid. And let's do that. Let me show you one other thing. Layout settings. Okay, let's change this back to a grid and update. So we have featured pets where we can see 6 at a time, or we can do the carousel. I think after reviewing, I like it where featured pets, there are the top 6 that are here. I think that's really great. And then we also have this get involved option too. So for now, that's a good enough start on our sidebar, but that is what we're gonna do to customize the actual event page. So on our event page, we have the actual thing, and we also have some call outs for the featured pets as well as the get involved. So the next thing we need to do is let's actually click on this pet adoption option. And this is showing all events that are based in the pet adoption category only. And then if someone clicks on events, it goes back to all events. Now this for me is fine. This I don't think needs a lot of finessing necessarily. So let's see if we can add a page title to this events page. Let's come up here and click on customize. Let's come down to the events calendar and we will go to the events layout page. Now on this page at the time of this video, there isn't a way to add a page title for some reason. So we are going to have to add one manually ourselves using the hooked elements feature. We already have invested in the pro version. If you're following along in this video, hopefully you have too, so that you could utilize this feature. So let's go ahead and keep this published. We'll click on the X and let's go back to our dashboard and set that up. So underneath appearance and elements, we're going to come up here and click on add new. This is going to be a content section. We're going to call this the events page title. And then down here, we are going to add a row layout. And all we want to do is add the actual page title. So we're going to come up here and we can actually write local events. And let's center this, make this an H1 on the page. As far as the background goes, let's go to style, and instead of just making it a color, let's actually make this a background image. So let's choose an image here, maybe of this happy couple with this dog. We're going to click on select, we'll make the dog centered. And we'll also go to this background overlay setting and give it an overlay. So we're going to give it the darkest overlay that we have. Let's bump this up to about 50. And let's click into this title and make that white. I think that looks pretty good. Now, let's click into the element settings option and go to placement. If I click into here, I can type in events and you can see that I do have the option, 2 options really for events. I either have events before content or after content. Now, if you click on events before content, this is going to keep a gap at the top that's controlled by your global theme settings. Let me show you what I mean. So let me go ahead and publish this. Oh, I do need to set the display settings as well. So let's say we want this on the events archive and I'm going to hit save. The rest of the settings are all fine. So let's go back into our events page. And as you can see, this page title isn't necessarily at the top or full width. It's only going right on top of this search bar. So now there are a few things we could try to do to try to force it. For instance, we could try to make this full width, which should extend it. And if I click on save and refresh, that does extend it. But again, there's this whole gap at the top that we can't get rid of unless we change all of the global layout settings within the customizer. So as a quick, easy fix, instead of targeting the events before content, we can just do after header, and that should append right underneath the header instead. So let's go ahead and save, and let's refresh. Now it's sticking at the very top of the page. So I think I want to make this a little bit bigger, and instead of utilizing all of this margins and padding, instead I'm going to click on our little block settings, and in the Advanced tab, go to the Structure settings, click on Minimum Height, go View Height, and let's set that to be like 32. And we also want the alignment to always be in the middle, and we're going to save. Now let's go back, let's refresh, and that is looking much better. So now we have a title and then as well as the rest of our event content. So that's about all we need to do to get our events set up for our use case. But if you want to use the events calendar for your next project, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a really, really great tool. And if you want to upgrade to the Events Calendar Pro plugin, there are a ton of additional features that you can utilize as well. For instance, if you need recurring events, I would recommend you go Pro. And if you want different views like the week view and the map view, again, you would want to go Pro on the events calendar. And if you want to embed your calendar or events anywhere on your site, that's another reason to go Pro. So there is the rest of this helpful article that I will link to in case you are wondering if you want to go Pro or if you just need the free version. So I highly encourage that you check that out. That's about it for this video tutorial. It's going to be kind of short and sweet this week because we just needed to get all of these set up so that in our next video, when we start customizing the homepage, we have all of our features already set up and in place. And at that point, it's just the design. So I hope that you will stick around for the next video when we start customizing the homepage. Bye for now.